You're listening to the God Life Culture Podcast, where faith
and what's trending collide. Welcome back to the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. This is Eddie.
What's up, everyone? This is Miguel, and we are so thankful that you are tuned in for another episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. If this is your first time watching, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. Welcome to the God Life Culture Podcast. If you are a returning listener and subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in each week as we drop new episodes, as we have new conversations, and we just have a lot in store for the next few weeks. And, it's summer officially, right? This week it marked the beginning of summer. So, hopefully this is an opportunity for, individuals to just get out, do something fun, to get out and, kind of break up the routine, enjoy the weather, be outside more. We were talking about this the other day. All of those things actually do help you, right? Overall, emotionally and with your mood and, even your mental health. Just sometimes being outside and stepping away from your desk, your computer, stepping away from your home and responsibilities, just kind of being outside for a bit definitely helps.
Yeah, and I think that, times is crazy. Not everyone has a career in which, they get summers off like teachers do and all of that. So there's some people that are stuck working a 9 to 5 all summer long.
I don't know if he's being shady.
No,
you definitely pointed at me
because you speak about it a lot.
No.
Like every other episode.
Yes, I am off in the summers. So, it's great.
No,
it's
what
amazing.
I was trying to say was that unfortunately, I put myself in that position where my schedule is really crazy, and sometimes my schedule doesn't allow for let me go to the beach on a random Tuesday or something like that. So I was saying what I was going to say before I was interrupted was that, sometimes you kind of just have to make a way. So if that means that instead of you sitting at your desk for lunch or instead of you going to the lounge or whatever, your work situation is, go for a drive, put the windows down, maybe you already have your lunch with you. So then cautiously drive. But sometimes you gotta eat and drive and just let the wind blow in the car, put some good music. You do things like that where you kind of have to really figure out where can I put in a little time to just enjoy the good weather or the good time. Some people like rain, so park out, go outside in the rain, just park your car, let the rain fall, do stuff like that. Because not everyone has the luxury of, like I was saying, to just get a summer off. I remember when I used to get summers off when I worked at the schools and stuff, I don't have that anymore. So it's kind of now you got to kind of figure out.
And even those on New York or Long Island, sometimes we forget that not every state or area has beaches, right? So I remember a few weeks ago when we were at the beach, my dad was saying we sometimes take this for granted, the fact that we're on an island, that we actually have beaches that we can go to. Very true. I think about family members that I have in Pennsylvania, they're right kind of in the middle there. There really aren't any beaches. They go to this kind of body of water that it's like a lake type deal, right? That they've kind of made to look like a beach. But they have sand that and all of that. But we have a lot of times opportunities around us and things that we can enjoy that sometimes we can take for granted. So make sure that this is the summer that if you are by the beach and you don't really go to the beach that often, go. If you don't really go out to the park to walk or run or jog or bike ride, try to do that and just get out more.
Yeah, get out more and make sure that you are level-headed, you have a clear mind, and that you're not allowing the excitement of we spoken about before, this is maybe a real summer back to start making bad decisions. I think that sometimes because of excitement and maybe it's been a really long time that you haven't done anything fun, you're I'm gonna go all out. And then you start making decisions you aren't supposed to make. And then that all-out night of fun turned into a night of a lot of headaches.
Yeah, and that was a nice segue into today's topic.
You're welcome. It's a gift, honestly. It's a gift.
Talking about bad decisions.
Yes.
We've all been there. We've all made bad decisions at one point or another, right? And I think as we get older and as we live life, we reflect on the decisions we made when we were younger in our, childhood or in our teens. And, some of us are still reminded of those bad decisions because we still have the bruises or the wounds or the, scars, right? From that. I was going to say trauma, but I was like, that's a little too heavy. Maybe there's trauma, yes, but scars, right? From, bad decisions that we made when we were younger.
Yep. Very true. I mean, younger or yesterday, this morning. Right. I mean, it could have been any time, a day, or in your timeline where we've all been there. We've all been in a situation where, we had a decision to make and we chose the wrong one. Sometimes it happens consciously, like you're doing something you're not supposed to, and other times it just happens like you didn't even realize it. Maybe you took a gamble and it didn't play out the way that you thought it was gonna play out. And some bad decisions are bigger than others. Some of them lead to trauma and scars and like really chaotic outcomes, and others is just a lesson learned.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking one of the things that came to mind when I first was thinking about the subject was I was younger. I'm going to say generously like 8 or 9 years old. And in the church that I grew up in, we on the 3rd floor, there was like an apartment situation. So I had like full kitchen, all of that, good stuff. And there was a group of kids that were playing with matches. And they were playing with matches and they were like burning like paper or burning like cups and stuff like that. And I was watching it as a kid and being like, that looks pretty cool. Disclaimer, it is not. Do not play with fire. But then I remember that after everybody like dissipated and went downstairs, I'm guessing the service has started. I stood behind. I took the matches. I took a cup, ran to the bathroom, and started playing with the matches too, burning like a styrofoam cup. Something really like dumb but dangerous. Dumb but dangerous. Disclaimer, I'm going to put like a flashing thing.
Right.
And I got caught. And I got in trouble. And I think that the reason why I that's a memory that pops up a lot was because I was the weird kid in church, in the sense that I was the kid that all the adults liked. Why? Because I was the kid that exemplified, what is a young person supposed to be doing in a church? They sit in the front, they're engaging during worship. When it's the preaching time, they're not like under a desk coloring or something like that. I mean, under the bench coloring. I was the kid that sat in the front, that stood with the adults, that had my Bible, I did all the right things. And this was the thing that reminded them, oh, he's just a kid. And I don't know, I think the weight of that always made me feel, especially in that moment,
right,
to be like, oh, I messed up. And it wasn't the fact that I got caught with the matches. It was the fact that I kind of messed up the vision that they had of me as this like golden child.
Right.
So
and that's tough. Just that part right there, right? The feeling of letting people down, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that is the case with bad decisions that we make. We have that sense of, we let the people down around us, the people that, know us to be a certain way, but we made a bad decision and it was like, they're not going to look at me the same.
Yeah,
right?
Mind you, isn't that something that follows me to this day? I'm not a pyromaniac. Right. I'm not playing with matches on the low or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure none of those people even remember that.
Right.
But it's the feeling, and that's what really like sticks with you when it's not the scars and it's not the trauma and it's not the whatever. It's that feeling where when you think about that moment and you go back in time, you remember how you felt in the moment of getting caught.
And you got caught, and what happened? Like,
I was
excommunicated. What happened?
did. I got kicked out of the church at 9. No, no. So someone else found out and mentioned it to the pastor, who then at the time, at the end of the service, brought me into the office. So since I was young, I was getting pulled into the pastor's office. No, stop. And asked me about it. And it was, long story short, I admitted to it. Because I've always been that type of person that admits, like, I'm not going to lie. I'll be like, yes, it is what it is. My parents found out, and I got into big trouble when I got home. That's the short version. That's another scar.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think we all have stories like that, and it's funny because just in thinking about it, I think a lot of times, especially as kids, your parents tell you something and not that you don't believe them, but it's more like this idea of like, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to be me. And for me, it was probably around the same time, probably a little bit older. It must have been like maybe like 10 years old. I had a habit of, I had a specific set of sneakers that I would use to just be outside with. But these sneakers did not have shoelaces, right? They would you just slipped them on. And that's why I liked it, because you could just slip it on. But because they didn't have the support of the shoelaces to keep them tight, you know, you could trip or fall or whatever. Yeah. So my parents used to always tell me, do not put on those sneakers when you're playing outside, when you're running, when you're this and that. But because I thought it's going to be fine, nothing's going to happen, right? And it was easy to just slip on. One day I put them on. We were actually getting ready to have one of my own like birthday parties for me as I was a kid. And I remember I was going downstairs. You know, I had my cousins and my family lived downstairs at that time. And the steps in the backyard were concrete, like cement steps. And I made it like the first step going down, the second step after that, it was like, I don't remember what happened, which is a lot of like tumbling. Yeah. And I landed on my chin on like the last step of the concrete steps, you know, and shoes off, sneakers like, you know, thrown everywhere. So at that point, I'm like shocked that this happened, right? But then I get up so fast, I jet upstairs, I go to my room, lock myself in my room, and I was not seen for like an hour. And everyone was like, you know, where's Junie? Like, that's what they call me. And like, where is he? And they see me in the room, they come to me, and I'm like hiding all my wounds and battle scars, like knees scraped up, chin, trying to like, you know, hide the whole thing. And again, horrible decision to not listen to my parents. Horrible decision to, you know, be trying to take the lazy way out and trying to take the easy way out to just throw on sneakers I had there to go downstairs. Cost me, you know, that fall. And again, initially when I fell, it didn't hurt, but afterwards, once you start seeing the scrapes, and it was everywhere.
It's after the adrenaline wears off.
Yes, after all of that, it's like, ow.
I have a similar story too. I think my older sister tells it a lot better. But I was younger. I was like 5. We were at my grandmother's. She lived in a 4-floor apartment complex situation. And her and my granddad were going somewhere. And I heard they were leaving me. And I was like, no, you can't leave me. No, you can't leave me. So I grabbed my sneakers and my socks, start running down the stairs with them in my hands. And the stairs were long, dude, like really, really long. And they would end like at a wall, and then you would curve and go back down the stairs, and like that, 3 flight of stairs like that. On the last flight, I fell down them stairs, went face first into that wall. And then the neighbors came out, because I had like the only knots, chichones, that's what we call it in Spanish, the only chichones. And my sister told the story how the whole time I'm just crying with my sneakers and socks saying, I thought you were going to leave me. I thought you were going to leave me.
First of all, that's so sad.
Trauma. This is our trauma episode.
So now, do you have abandonment issues today? Like,
I do. I know it's not.
But yeah, I mean,
it just and it's funny because they're all like kid decisions or whatever. But that was an emotional moment, and I think that as adults, you're maybe not falling down the stairs with your shoes and your socks in here saying, I thought you were gonna leave me. But I think that as adults, if we reflect, we can find moments where we were acting out of emotion and not rationally, and we made decisions that were not the right ones. You know, because as an adult, how many times haven't you gotten angry at someone, or how many times haven't you been like in a funk or in a mood, and you decided just make a rash decision and run somewhere or do something and be like, bump it, whatever happens, and then you fall face first into a concrete wall and you get a bunch of chichones. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think as an adult, sometimes you can forget. Right, about the childhood experiences. Like, these experiences aren't forever in my mind. Like, you know, at least once a week I'm thinking about it, right? Like, but you know, I think social media has a way of reminding you, right, of certain times in your life or certain decisions that you may have made. You know, for instance, when Facebook, right, like reminds you 8 years ago today, you posted this picture, and you look at it and you're like, why did I wear that? Right? Or you look at it and I'm like, why
quotes you thought you were posting? That is kind of like, nobody needed to know that.
Right.
That's why like, nobody liked it.
Why? Like, why did I put that out there? Why did I say that? Or, you know, you look at a certain picture, it brings you back to a certain point in your life where you're just like, oh, that was a horrible place in my life. And, you know, those years, or, you know, I was struggling with this, or this was happening, this was going on in my life. And, you know, not all the time do we get as an adult, right, those constant reminders, right? But I think when it does come our way, right, And when these reminders do come our way, I think it is important to think about and reflect on them, right?
Yes.
And also see, in some cases, how far you've grown, and then in others, maybe what you still need to work on.
Yeah.
Because as simple as, we're talking about childhood memories and childhood horrible decisions, right? In essence, we're not making those same decisions, but it's the same principles.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
We're not listening to certain things. We're not listening to maybe people's advice. We're not listening to what God is telling us we should be doing. We're not, following, certain things, and then we see the consequences of it later. Yeah. Right? Another childhood story that I think of is when I broke my wrist, and I was told constantly, I had a habit of setting up a table outside in the backyard to jump off the table to grab onto these monkey bars and do the monkey bars. And they used to always tell me, don't do that. Why are you jumping off the table? Just climb up that way. But no, me and my cousins, we had to jump on the table, jump off the table, grab on. And of course,
we're training for the Olympics.
Everything was fine until it wasn't. And it's fine every time you jump off and you grab onto the bar and you keep going and you're a G and you're like, yes, until you miss it, right? And then you fall and you land just right on your wrist. And that's exactly what happened. Did you hear anything?
Did it make like a crack or something?
No. But it did. Not that I remember. Like, I don't know. But, I mean, I was like, at that point, I was, again, 8, 9 years old. Yeah. I just remember that the next day was my dad's 30th birthday party. And which is scary, right? Just thinking about that.
That's next year.
For me is next year, but I remember my dad's 30th birthday party. Scary. But falling and then having, like, I only felt relief when I would pull my wrist. And like, so the next day I was constantly like this the whole time, just walking around. My parents are like, because again, I didn't tell my parents. I'm like, I suffered in silence for that time.
That's next week's episode, Suffering in Silence.
Yeah. And so they noticed because people always notice, right? I noticed.
That's part 2.
They know. And they're like, what's wrong with your wrist? What's wrong with your arm? And then everything, at that point, like you said, it just starts spilling out. And my wrist was broken and I had a cast for 6 weeks, So it was, again, decisions that you make. You were told not to do it. You do it anyway. Then you're 6 weeks in a cast,
Are they itchy? I've never had a cast, but you see like the people with like the metal rods.
Yeah.
Like, trying
so
to scratch.
It was like pens or pencils, but being careful not to like
hit a stitch.
Yeah, not so much that. But
you didn't get surgery or anything?
No,
it's just like they hold it in place.
No, but I had a cast that went up to my elbow.
Okay.
So still,
no, but I'm saying like they just hold it in place. They didn't like put anything. On your wrist.
No. But again, when it would get itchy, it was like pens or pencils. But it was just a lot because, it couldn't get wet. So like when you would shower, you had to like keep your hand up. Then I remember I was in elementary school. I remember spilling chocolate milk on it. So like part of it was like brown. Like then everybody was signing it.
Yeah, okay, that's the next thing.
So that was like very cool, having people sign it. Then I remember when they went and took it off, they had to like,
saw it out.
Yeah. They were like, do you want to keep it? I was like, no, it did smell. It was gross. But I was like, no, not interested. They're like, you sure? Like all the kids are like, we want to keep it. I'm here like, no, you could stay with that. But yeah, bad decision, right? That then you realize later, like, man, that wasn't cool. Should have listened.
And I think that if we reflect, like if we could go back in time, we wouldn't make those decisions again. Like you would listen, don't use the table, just climb up the monkey bars. I wouldn't play with the matches. I wouldn't, run down these stairs with the shoes and socks in my hands. And I think that there's a lot of moments in our life in which we could reflect it and be like, man, if I could, I would change it. And sometimes they're like dumb little things like the ones we're talking about. So it's not that big of a traumatic situation. But other times there are big things that you've done in your life that you really do wish you can go back and change. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the way you want to look at it, we don't have that ability. We don't have the ability to time travel. And, it's not one of those things we can put on a prayer list. Like I'm praying to God, bring me back to 2013 because I'm going to go and I'm going to switch this. Like you can't do that. So what you do is you have to reflect, learn from the lesson, whatever the situation is, because in each one of those situations, there's always a lesson to learn. Big or small.
Just watch a step.
or just follow the directions, or just, use common sense. And then those are the things that you apply in your life. And then you really have to like dump out everything else, because when you carry the weight of those bad decisions and you're constantly reminding yourself of the bad decisions, and you're constantly telling yourself, I wish I can go back. I wish I could do this. I would do that different. I would do this different. Then you're in this constant cycle in your mind, in your head, mentally, where you're just stuck. And it's not allowing you to move forward. It's not allowing you to progress. It's not allowing you to grow. It's not allowing you to enjoy the moments you're currently living in, because you're still living in this time warp of the past.
Yeah, and I think ultimately when you make these bad decisions and you realize it was a bad decision, you live in the consequences of it and all of those things, I think it then leaves room for you to grow and become very resentful, right? And live with regret. True. And the idea of living a life with so many regrets and living a life where you wish you could have changed this and changed that, as we know, is not healthy. So I think in order to kind of overcome, these bad decisions, it's accepting what happened, accepting what was done, accepting the result of the bad decision, but, understanding how can I change, right? How can I grow? How can we take this horrible situation and try to make it positive, or a lesson that's learned from all of this? And I think a lot of it does begin with forgiving yourself, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it seems so silly, but, we could easily be here. I could be here and, think back to the 6 weeks I had my cast and just beat myself up over it. Like, I can't believe you did that. You were 6 weeks with a cast, horrible. Why didn't you do it? Why did you go down those steps without, the right sneakers, tie your sneakers? Why didn't you listen to your parents? Why did you do this? You could do the same thing. Like, why did you light the cup on fire? What possessed you to do that all the time? And it sounds silly to do that with those examples, but then as you grow older and, it's the college you chose. Yes. Why did you choose to go to that college? You should have went away. You should have lived, and you should have went and seen what it would have been like to, have gone out of state or traveled abroad. And, you missed out on so many opportunities. You can constantly, kind of beat yourself up over decisions you made or decisions you didn't make. And that is no way to live. So the idea of also forgiving yourself, right? And giving yourself that grace to also know, like, hey, I made some pretty bad decisions and, I had some horrible consequences. I learned that's not who I am anymore. Yeah. I'm stronger. I'm wiser. I understand how to navigate these situations better. This is how I'm going to be now moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that on the flip side as well, we can sometimes, find ourselves in that, mind warp, time warp of blaming, but instead of blaming yourself, you're really blaming God. So like in the sense of like when God doesn't allow certain things to happen a certain way, then it's kind of like, God, that's so messed up. If you would have allowed this to happen, then my life would have been like that. Yeah. Or if you would have not done that, then this would have happened. So then you're like in this constant state of, once again, like regret. And then you're upset with God, and then you're upset with yourself because you're like, I should have not listened. I should have did my own thing, or, and I think that when you find yourself in those positions, you really have to find a way to pull yourself out of that because it is like quicksand. It really is, where you kind of get stuck in there, and it can be a couple of days. It could be a couple of weeks. It can turn into months. It could turn into years. And then you blink and it's been 15 years of you holding this grudge and this resentment with yourself and with God because things didn't play out the way that you wanted them to play out. Whether it was because you think you made a bad decision, or there's people out there that actually think God made bad decisions. Like that's not what he should have did. He should have did something else. He should have, made things work out a different way. And you really have to be careful with that.
Yeah. And I think also coming up with a plan in the next time you're put in a situation where you have to make a decision. Yeah. Right. I think there are decisions that we make right, on the spot. It's quick because there's no anticipation. Right. But then there are decisions where we know we have a choice that's coming up to make. We have, something we have to choose. We have time. So it's like, next time I'm going to make sure I really take the time before making that decision. Maybe, you can't give that person a quick response. Maybe it needs to be like, all right, I'll think about it. Let me get back to you instead of committing. Because there are levels of bad decisions. There are bad decisions where you just like to say yes all the time. You say yes and then you overcommit. and you overwork yourself. And then you feel like, again, if I say no, I'm disappointing people. But then at the same time, you can't get everything done that you're trying to get done because you're saying yes to everybody. Bad decisions. So now next time, when I'm confronted with, can you do this for us? Can you do that? Instead of just saying yes, I'm going to really stop and think about it, look at my schedule and see, am I actually able to get this done?
And do you actually want to do it? I think that's another thing where people would commit to stuff because they feel like they have to say yes.
Yeah.
So then now they're given a responsibility, a task, a job to do something. And because of the fact that they really don't want to do it and that they should have said no from the beginning, they wind up doing either something very mediocre or they wind up completely being irresponsible and not doing it at all. When from the beginning, you could have just been like, I'm not really feeling it. Like, honestly, I appreciate you wanting to give me the opportunity. Maybe I've done this for the last 15 years. Year 16, I need to take a step back. And like, you need to be able to make, those are good decisions also, because it's better for you to walk away from something and be like, no, I just know that if I try to do it, I'm not in the right headspace for it. So I'd rather let somebody else do it than you, whether it's because of greed or whether it is because you don't want to disappoint other people or whether it is because you don't want to be honest with yourself. It's not say, no, I need to give it a pass. Then it becomes a big mess for not only you, but everybody else involved in that situation.
Yeah. So again, it takes that moment to really reflect and think, before making these decisions. And again, for some of us, it's silly examples. For others, it's serious examples. You were telling me of something you had seen that someone sent you on TikTok, right? About this youth pastor that had a horrible day.
Me a video, yes.
And, it was just a series of bad decisions and how each bad decision had a crazy consequence.
Yeah.
Tell us about that TikTok.
No. Well, basically, long story short, I think the story was about a youth pastor's perspective on how there's a couple of things that happened, my people. The first one is that they were doing this thing. Some churches do this. Where like you'll bring the thing that is either physically or symbolically your idol. So, we're going to bring this thing to church today. We're going to give it up to God. And, they do the whole big spiel. So he brought his master's degree because according to him, he felt like he idolized his master's degree.
Yeah.
So I guess they put it in like a can or a garbage bucket or something like that. And after everybody was done, like throwing all their stuff, they light the can on fire. So he's like, oh, snap, that's my master's degree. I need that. So he goes and grabs a master's degree while it's aflame and throws it on a rug that catches fire. So then he got his master's degree back, but it's charred, however you say that. The rug got messed up. So now the youth ministry has to replace that rug. Then they decided to play this game where it's kind of like they present to you with something and you have to choose, do you want that item or do you want the mystery box? So the last round was, I think it was like $200. You can either get $200 or you can get the mystery item. And it was the turn of this young person. It was their first time coming to that youth ministry, first time in that church, I think. They're, first time there. And instead of the $200, he decides to choose the mystery box. Inside the mystery box was a pair of keys. That sounds weird, but whatever. Jabez.
Yes, keys.
Keys to a car. So this kid just won a car, but the car belonged to the youth pastor. So to him, he thought it was a joke and it was like, ha ha, whatever. I need my keys back. You're not going to take my car. That youth's parents got upset, did an uproar, was like, I'm going to sue the church. If you don't give my son the car, you promised him a car. He played the game. And the church had to buy this person a car. So this youth pastor speaks about like how he had a horrible day of just really bad decisions. Like, should he have thrown his master's degree in there? No, I don't think you should have. And then you picked it up and then threw it on a rug that caught fire. Well, that just cost the youth some money. And then on top of the fact that you played a game with, because my question would have been like, if I would have chose the money, would you have given it to me?
Right. Where's the $200? Let's see it first.
Well, yeah, maybe they did have it. But my question would have been like, if I would have chosen the money, would you give me the $200? If you say yes, then I'm like, so the rules still apply for this car. Right. I don't care whose name is on the correspondent. So I understand why the kids got upset. Obviously, it's an extreme. Some parents are like that. Some people are very like that. Like, you promised me this, so you have to give it to me.
Yeah.
Other people will be like, oh, that's kind of messed up, and kind of like let it go. But you never know who you're gonna encounter.
Yeah.
And I think that's what bad decisions. Those are situations that bad decisions put you in. Because if it would have been somebody else, maybe they would have laughed it off and played it like it was nothing. But you picked the wrong person, and you picked somebody that wasn't gonna let it go. You picked somebody that was gonna get offended. You didn't know that. You weren't planning on that situation happen. But those series of bad decisions led this youth pastor to lose a lot of money in that one day.
Yeah, and as people who are in ministry and teachers, preachers, pastors, you're constantly kind of in the crossfires, right? Yeah. Of and crossroads of, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I go with this example or that example? Whether you're, and talking about the youth, is this example a little too like harsh? Is this a little too like graphic or a little too like too much?
Yeah.
Or should I go this route, to really get my point across? And I think you're constantly in a place where you're, debating or thinking about the two options, right? And it's hard. And I do believe that, yes, there's a lot of practicality when it comes to making decisions. You have to look at, really, if he was the one putting this together, my question is, why did he grab his master's degree? Like, did he not know that, like, who was in charge of putting this together? Like, did he not know that they were going to light this bucket on fire? Or was this
a moment where, like, somebody, like, got really inspired and decided, let's take it up another
Because
notch.
then there's other things that you have to, like, do. Like, okay, next time we have to make sure that before we do anything, you run that by me. Just so I make, you know what I mean? Like, there's moments like that. But you have to really think, in practical terms. But on top of that, ultimately, I also believe that you do have to pray about your decisions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there are decisions in life that you can just get up and leave and go away to another country and decide to live there. You can get up and leave and decide, I'm going to go study abroad. You can, quit your job and go and, go to each beach that's on your island. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want ultimately.
Yeah.
But is that the wise decision? Is that what God wants you to do?
Yeah, and I think that also there's the reality in which you can think about the scenarios and you can do the prayers and you can do the checklist and you can do the pros and the cons and you can weigh out all the options and you make a decision that you think was the best decision and it still not really work out.
Yeah.
There is the reality where that does happen. But I think that what we're speaking about is when you don't go through those steps.
Yeah.
When you just make rash decisions and you're just, putting yourself in situations that you could have definitely avoided. Not all decisions do we have the ability to, have a premonition and be like, oh yeah, if I do this, it's going to go this way. If I do that, it's going to go the other way. Sometimes, life is really a gamble. And it's really mostly about trusting God and being like, all right, Lord, this is the decision I feel in my heart. God, if it's something else, let me know. Sometimes you don't hear anything. So you're like, all right, I'm going to go, this is the road I'm going. And it may not work out. But those are different scenarios versus the ones where you put yourself in that position. Like, you should have really never done that.
And I believe that there are moments where God wants you to take that leap of faith and God wants you to take that step forward, where it's almost like, what if it doesn't work out, but what if it does?
Yeah.
What if, this isn't what God wants, but what if this actually is where God is leading me? And sometimes God won't give you the full picture, won't give you the full, puzzle, and you have to kind of put it together as you go along and trust in him. It reminds me of the verse, Proverbs, 3, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Some saying he will make your path straight. So it's almost like this idea of having to trust in God with our everything, right? And not leaning on our own understanding, not leaning on what we think is right, not leaning on what we want, our will, but trusting in him. And not only that, on top of that, acknowledging him, like acknowledging, like, listen, God, you're first. So ultimately, what is it that you want? What is it that you want me to do? And as a result of that, he will direct your path. He'll straighten your path, where your path can be crazy and you have all these different options and, and decisions to make. And he'll kind of guide you and let you know, like, which one to take.
Yeah. And I think a tough pill to swallow is you have to understand that failure is part of the process.
Yeah.
You cannot navigate life 100% with 100% success rate.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not how it works. You will have times where the failure is the lesson. It's the prize that you were supposed to get through that experience. It's not really much about, what the outcome that you wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's about an outcome arise what did you learn from an experience? How did it make you grow? How did it make you stronger? How did it make you wiser? Like, those are the things that we have to take out of those experiences. And you don't get those experiences and those life lessons if everything is always successful. If you went around life always making great decisions, making the right choices, then you wouldn't be as strong or as wise or as, flexible as you are at this moment.
Yeah. So definitely, if you feel like you are at that crossroads, if you feel like maybe you're on the other side where you made a horrible decision, it didn't pan out the way you thought, it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, see where you can grow. Where can you grow from here? How can you come out of this? How can this be a positive thing for you? What is the bright side in all of this? Even if it is, I'm not going to do that again. And that's the bright side. That's the positive. At least I know what happens. I know the result, the consequence. I'm not going to do that again, even if that's what it is. But what lesson can you learn from this bad decision? And reflecting and knowing, how to move forward, how to trust God and surrender all of those worries, concerns, and details about God. How is this going to happen? How is that going to happen? How am I going to make it through? Sometimes you won't have all the answers, and you won't have all the answers to your questions, your concerns, your worries, and you have to take that step forward. You will fail along the way. Yeah. It won't work out all the time, but keep moving forward in spite of those horrible decisions and moments where even it's your own fault for certain things happening or not happening, trusting that ultimately God has a plan and he'll help kind of direct and straighten that path.
Amen. With that, that's a wrap. Tell everybody where they can find us.
Sure. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at God Life Culture Podcast. If you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, you can go to YouTube to watch our visual there at God Life Culture Podcast. You can check out our vlog that we put up from our trip to see the Maverick City and Kirk Franklin concert a few weeks back. You can check that out on there as well. Hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we drop a new episode, and go out and do something fun.
Yeah, so thank you once again for tuning into the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. That's God Life Culture. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.